My name is Ayse Hogan, and I am the visionary and founder of IAUSM, but I also work with people to live consciously, not only in their lives, but with their money and with their relationships, and even in their sex lives. Living consciously, living in the moment. And one of those things, as one of the topics that we're going to be talking today, is one of the things that we talk about a lot when I'm with my own clients, and that is commitment. What commitments have you made in your life? And what is that creating around you? So we're going to get into that a little bit more today. But Jules, if you could introduce yourself.
Okay, so get this microphone working. Hi, my name is Jules Hare, and I am a lover and expert of working with people in their bodies, body trauma, inner child work. I love facilitating that link between our bodies and our minds. What we think is possible, what the knowledge and information that we're taking in, and actually integrating it into our physical being. My great love and joy is working with kids, imagination, and utilizing our imagination to actually step in and see our bodies and be in relationship with our bodies in new ways. And yeah, I'm excited to be here today, Ayse.
And I'm excited to have you. First of all, what's a commitment? What am I talking about? So what is a commitment? It's a series of, it's like a belief. It is our belief system, only it's even deeper than that because it's something that we continue to reinforce. So one of those things might be, I'm always broke, or I don't have enough of this, or I'm missing that in my life. And because we continue to say them over and over and over again, over a long period of time, we've created a commitment to ourselves. And that's powerful when you think about it, that you've created this commitment to not have enough. When you've created a commitment to say that you're always broke. When you've created a commitment to say that I can't find love in my life. Or maybe I should just be alone. And when we say these things over and over again, they move even beyond being just a belief, but something that we have almost engraved in stone. This is it, right? This is who I am. And the next thing that we end up doing, and we'll talk about that too, is that we blame others for the commitments that we've made for ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit more and get into this a bit more too. Is that this is the thing that causes us to remain in the life that we have created and committed to ourselves. So if you're in a life that you are not happy with for one reason or another, there's some area of your life or all areas or just a area of your life that you're not happy with, that doesn't bring you joy, that doesn't make you feel good, then you have to ask yourself, what have I committed to? What commitments have I made? Because normally what we do is if someone says, hey, you say you're always broke or whatever, and people say they get defensive, about it. They attempt to justify their situation. They blame others for their situation instead of creating new commitments. And they run through this sequence over and over and over again and just keep deepening this commitment that they've put into place. Jules, before I go any further, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, that was awesome, Ayse. I had actually never thought of all of the awesome, all of the things that I say to myself in my head that are negative as being commitments. So I really like how you turned that around, because if we were to look at all of those things that we tell ourselves and think of those things as commitments, I think that a lot of us would say we make way more commitments to the negative than we do to the positive, that there's a negativity bias that we're leaning into when it comes to making commitments. Because when I heard you were having this podcast, I was like, oh yeah, I can talk about the commitments that I've made, in my life, and different things that I've been able to step into and use willpower. but I've never thought of the fact that I've utilized a lot of my attention in making commitments in a negative way.
Sorry, that's my bad here. So I'm just talking away and nobody's there. So one of the biggest senses that we don't use, we all think that we have 5 senses. Our 5 physical senses. But our biggest physical sense is not in that list. Right? Our biggest physical sense is our body. Our body, and I know you can speak to this, Jules, our body tells us what's right and what's wrong for us. Our body tells us how we are honoring ourselves or how we are dishonoring ourselves. Our body will tell us that all the time, every day, any decision that we want to make. If we pay attention to our body and how it feels when we say these commitments, when we live or make decisions and choices for ourselves, if we just paid attention, we would honestly see where those commitments that we make or the things that we say over and over again are actually dishonoring ourselves and actually should not be what we're doing. So if your commitment to yourself feels bad in your body, and I'm just going to use money right now because everybody gets with that. So if my commitment to myself is I am committed, basically when you say I'm broke, you're basically saying I am I'm going to use I'm not going to use my name. I don't want to say that. So let's call it Joe. Joe, have committed myself to remaining broke. That's really what you're saying. I have committed to myself that I will remain broke. I have committed to myself that I will never have enough. And if you say that statement, whoever's listening to this, I want you to think of some of the statements that you say or some of the places in your life where you feel negative and turn it into a commitment and say it. Think of something that you say negatively to yourself, Jules, and say, I, Jules, have committed to myself that, and how does that feel?
Wow, that feels pretty intense when you take a thought and make it a commitment. It's like one of my biggest things lately, and I'm sure that a lot of the listeners will attest to this being common in all of us, because it's common in a lot of my clients as well, is not being enough. And the thought of that I'm committing to not being enough, that's not something I want to commit to. That's the last thing I want to commit to. And meanwhile, the number of times I've committed to that just by stating it to myself, yeah, that's a big one.
It's huge, right? So the minute one of those things feel bad, I'm going to ask you to think of some different questions, because questions are powerful. And we're actually going to do one day soon, we're going to be doing a whole talk about questions and the power of questions. But what if you asked yourself things like, what feelings in my body am I denying? What feelings am I denying, right? And am I acting or living in integrity? Now listen, this one is interesting, because sometimes, let's say I promised somebody something and for whatever reason I couldn't deliver. Could be just I had to pay this bill and I didn't pay it, right? So just that can be enough to shift things for you, because it creates a negative feeling in your body when you think about the fact that you didn't pay that bill, right? And then what beliefs and what commitments are you making around that, right? So the minute you do that, you start getting defensive, you start justifying the fact that you haven't paid the bill yet, you start making up reasons, you're blaming things, right? You're in that sequence. But all you need to do to adjust that and to be back in your integrity is as simple as paying the bill, or calling that person and making another arrangement, or doing your best to find some kind of compromise, right? So if you can do that, then you bring yourself back into a space of integrity. What truths am I hiding or avoiding? Right?
I have a question for you about that, Ayse. I'm just thinking about all the people in the world right now, and how, your example of the bill, it's like, it's not just a bill, it's the fact that I have that bill, and then I haven't called this person back, and then I have to think about this, but I haven't had any time, and my kids are pulling my attention, and I know that I have to get new tires on the car, and like, there's so many things that are pulling on us all the time. What would you say as far as commitment goes, like when we're overwhelmed, because I know a lot of people, and a lot of us are overwhelmed right now, bring integrity back to self? What would be the commitment that you can make, or that saying that you would repeat in your mind in that situation?
I would say that you recommit. You create a new commitment for yourself. You realize that old commitment's not working for you anymore, and you create a new commitment. And yes, we overwhelm ourselves, and maybe the commitment becomes, I am going to bring balance. I'm committed to bringing a state of balance into my life so that I don't feel this overwhelm, right? You don't want to feel that overwhelm. So I am committed to bringing a state of balance in my life, because overwhelm is a hugely negative emotion on the body. It creates almost like a catastrophic chemical reaction going on inside of you, and your cells become addicted to the feeling, the peptides, so to speak, of overwhelm, right? Even looking at overwhelm in a different way, instead of calling it overwhelm, maybe it's opportunities. Look at all the opportunities that are in front of me, all these different things, right? So it's about even busy, not a good word, right? Busy, you're in demand, right? You're not busy, you're in demand, right? A positive sense of like using better words to also describe what you're going through, using it in more of a positive, more empowering way. But also it's about, yeah, we have stuff to do, but we chose to do all those things, right? We chose to make our calendar so full that we have reached a state of overwhelm.
I like that idea of reframing it as a cascade of possibilities.
Exactly.
Right? How are you doing? Instead of being busy, it's like, wow, I'm bombarded with all sorts of possibilities, and I'm just wading through what feels right for me.
Exactly. Right? And then also looking at your schedule, and have you booked too many things for yourself? Right? Let's face it. If we think of our ancestors from 500 years ago, we do way more than they used to do in a day, right? Way more. But we've chosen that. Our lives, or everything around it, is all of our commitments. Everything in your life is your commitment. Everything. And if you look at it that way, and if there's parts of your life that don't feel good, then it's like, how do I change my commitment? What part of this do I need to look at and say, you know what, that commitment might have worked then. Or maybe it was a commitment that I was told that I had to have, but it doesn't actually work for me.
And I think that's a really good point, is that sometimes we forget to renegotiate our commitments. And like you said, when it comes to the body, and it's what I often will say too, is with all the body work that I do and somato-emotional release and the inner child work, is that our body is trying to tell us something, but we weren't really taught to listen to our body. And even that quiet time of listening to your body and making a commitment, and like you said, Ayse, feeling what that commitment feels like. Or maybe, acknowledging that negative commitment that you've made, that's what makes you feel stressed. But this one that you choose, this commitment to move towards joy, or to commit to loving yourself in every moment, or seeing the stress as a cascade of possibilities or potential. That's really powerful, because then you're actually tuning in to your body and actually feeling the difference. And I know, from all sorts of different somatic body work, is that when you step in and say, how does that feel, body? If it's a stressful situation or something negative, then your body, you'll feel it as often at your chest or in your stomach, and like you've been punched in the gut, or like you've been stabbed in the heart. People use these words all the time. but that opportunity to say, wow, that actually feels peaceful. And instead of just saying it feels peaceful, actually say, I'm going to step into that peaceful, so that every time you recommit or remember that commitment, you can step into the feeling and the the multisensory experience, the sound, the smell, the taste, the memory, the thought. The more you can immerse it in that multisensory experience, then the more locked in it is every time you check into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's a practice. You're right. We never were taught. So we're taught math. We're taught science. We're taught history. We're not even taught how to use our own body. Something that we have. We're taught all these different math equations that we might sometimes maybe need in our lives. Perhaps you better know it though. But this body that we're walking around in all the time, this avatar that we are, existing in for this lifetime, we are not taught how to use it.
It sounds ridiculous, right? Like it's the most preposterous thing ever.
Right? So it's like, okay, well, that's an interesting point of view and a way to look at it, but it's the absolute truth. So, sometimes I say to myself, and I ask my clients to say to themselves a statement like this, and some people, it's weird how they react to this statement. And it's part of owning, not blaming anymore, but owning your shit. I'm going to just say it like that. It's time to own your shit. And one of it is like, I'll say it how I say it. I, Ayse, accept that I always live what I am committed to. And when you say that statement, it either feels really good inside because you understand your commitments, or it feels like, ugh.
With your definition of commitment that is newly, remastered in my mind of the commitments that I'm making negatively, unknowingly, that now can't be unconscious. Now they're all conscious. I can't wait for that cascade. but like I am always living my commitments. It's like, whoa.
Right?
Now, with that new definition, I'm going to have to definitely play with that for sure.
Right? And this has been like a huge, I have just really started working with commitments because we always, here's a word that we overuse, right? Limited beliefs, right? To the point where, I don't even know if people really, I think it's just part of our language now. And it's okay to walk around with limited beliefs, but commitments, right? That is so much more than that. That is your truth, right? And by not by not understanding that you have committed to the life that you are living, it's like you're walking around with your eyes closed to the truth.
Well, and I love how you said that too. And just let me know if I lose the connection here. Wi-Fi is not always so great. But what the difference between a limited belief and a commitment, and what it just sparked in my mind, was that a commitment is something that we're consciously bringing our attention to, and anything that we bring our attention to is something that we deem as being important, right? And so
Right.
Once you deem something important by directing your attention there, then you have to honor that, or at least acknowledge that it's a part of your experience. When it's a limited belief, then it's something that may be completely unconscious, maybe something you don't feel like you have access to, but a commitment is a choice, and that makes a huge difference.
Exactly. So if you sat there and you said, okay, so let's go back to the money, right? I hear this all the time. I work with money. I have a bookkeeping business. I do money coaching. I used to host a television show about, helping women with their money. So one of the things I used to hear all the time is, I don't have enough. Can't pay those bills. Don't know how to budget. Always fight with my husband or my wife. Can't talk about money. Can't do any of this stuff. And at the same time, my response is, now repeat after me. I, so-and-so, am committed to never having enough money. Just say it. And they'll look at me Like, I'm not saying that. I go, but you are. Right? What if you changed it? Like, how does it feel when you say that, right? How does it feel? What if you decide to recommit? Joe, consciously recommit to living a life of plenty, of financial ease and comfort.
That feels so much better, because as soon as you said that you wanted me to repeat that, I was like, ugh, I don't want to say that, Ayse.
Right? You know, even when we have issues in our relationships, he never pays attention to me. Right? You'll say things like, I don't get the attention I need, or he's always like or she's bitchy to me, or whatever it is. How about if you asked yourself and said, why, I so and so have committed to requiring this bitchiness in my life?
Yuck.
Because you made a choice.
Right? And I think that is the main thing. Like this exercise, you just asking me, and I know you're not asking me, but it feels like you're asking me when you say it. and when you do, I'm like, oh, I don't want to say that. Even though I've said it to myself, it's the attention to the commitment that shifts the entire paradigm of it.
Right? You can't blame the other person. So a lot of us have in our lives, we have people that bully us. We all have them, whether they're parents or uncles or, grandparents or, somebody at work or whatever. So let's imagine it's a mother and, they're bullying us to do something. And, we're grown adults, but we'll complain. She always treats me like I'm 5. She never lets me make my own decisions. Everything I say, she finds fault with, and all of these things. But when you kind of say, like, I, Ayse, am committed to allowing this person to bully me. Mm-hmm. I am allowing this and accepting it into my life.
Yeah, that's big, because it changes the entire paradigm of the fact that you have choice over that matter.
Right. Because we have been, we've gone back to a session that we had a few weeks ago about unconditioning the conditioning. We've been conditioned to believe that it's okay to blame other people. Mm-hmm. And as long as we continue to look outside of us for the situations that we're in, we're never, ever going to find the situation that we want to be in.
And it's that whole idea too, like Ho'oponopono, right? I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Mm-hmm. Actually digging into the part that we're responsible for, but it's so innately derived from our cultured society that we blame everybody else for everything, that this is a distinctively opposite paradigm than the way we were all raised.
Absolutely. So and the minute we can own it, now we can control it. The minute we take ownership of it and say, yes, I've committed to this. This is something that I made a commitment to. And they have the ability to change your commitment to recommit. Now you own it and you have control. The other way, you have no control, because we cannot control what another person does or says.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like that separation that we've created has also limited us from accessing our own power and potential to master ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's about also like even loving yourself. Oh, I don't love myself. I hear this all the time. I don't love myself. I don't trust myself. I don't love myself. Hey, there's a nice commitment.
I was going to say that's a good commitment. Don't make me repeat that. Can you say that aloud though? Say that aloud though. That's going to be powerful for people.
Okay, so I'm going to say Joe because I don't believe it's me. So I, Joe, have committed to loathing myself.
Ooh, feel that one. Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
I have committed to distrusting myself. I've committed to that.
Wow, I can feel that just tingle through my whole body. I'm sure we've all we've all made that commitment unknowingly at different times in our lives.
Right? And then we hate ourselves for not loving ourselves, for not being able to love ourselves. So wouldn't it be nice if we listen to Abraham Hicks, instead of saying what if we say, wouldn't it be nice if you even loved the fact that you have trouble loving yourself?
Step it out. Another step, right?
Right? I love, if you're an angry person, I love my anger. I love that I feel lonely. Instead of hating those things, if you love them, now you have power over them. They're not things that are happening to you and you're a victim of some circumstance.
Yes.
Because it's an imaginary circumstance. You created it through your commitments.
Well, and going back to that Ho'oponopono part, like, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I'll always say, it's, I love you, I'm sorry for noticing you separate from me.
Yes.
Right? The part of me that doesn't like, or doesn't accept love, it's like, I'm going to look at that part, and I'm sorry for noticing you separately from me. I love you part that doesn't like love, or doesn't think you deserve love. Right? It's that extra step out. Just like anything, if we can step further out, we can see it from a new perspective, we can actually gain a new relationship with it. But if it's too close, it just stays glued, and then you can't ever see it from a different perspective.
Right? So here's an interesting example when you talk about different perspectives. So you have a daughter, right, Julia? Jules?
Yes,
you have a daughter?
Do. Yeah.
Okay. So now imagine that your daughter, I don't know, is now on an eating binge, and she's 225 pounds. And she's also, her face has broken out. And she doesn't love herself very much. Now, what I'm going to ask you is, do you love your daughter any less because of those things?
Not in any way, no.
Right. So why do we love ourselves less when we're not perfect, what we think is perfect?
Because we're judging ourselves on everybody else, and the way everybody sees us, I should say.
Right? So, but those people love us, regardless. The people who love us, despite what we think are our flaws.
And I see what you're bringing up there, and I can imagine my daughter's voice. But I know you love me because you're my mom. Right?
Well, if I'm going to take it one step further, parents are just caretakers of their children. We've been gifted with being able to bring these children into this world, so into this space. But yeah, we love them because they're our mom, but moms also don't like things that their kids do. You might not like that maybe she steals candy at the store, or, maybe she has, she tells her teacher off from time to time. Maybe you don't like some of her behaviors, but you never, ever love her any less, and you love her even though she does that.
No doubt about it.
Right? So it's about loving yourself that you're with all the time, that you can never get rid of until the day that you transition. You're and even then you can't get rid of yourself. Right? So at the end of the day, this is it. This is you.
And that is so powerful, and coming back to what we were talking about earlier, that we never learned how to love ourselves and bring love back to ourselves and take responsibility so that we can love ourselves. We never learned how to listen to and talk and communicate with our bodies, and we never learned how to trust our instincts. I mean, some people did, but they did it on their own. It was never a set curriculum or ruled as any sort of priority growing up. And that's what needs to shift, and that's what is shifting, or is changing for a lot of people as they start realizing and awakening to their own potential.
And exactly. And as parents, it's about, what are you saying? I think of some of the things that my parents have said to me, and I know that they love me, okay, but it was just the time, the time. And we still carry some of that stuff into this life. Not everyone, but I hear parents saying it. I wish I'd never had you. You know, they're mad. I wish I'd never had you. And what commitments does that child make now? That they will carry with them forever until they recommit.
Yeah, my son said the other day, and he's a sarcastic son of a gun, but he said the other day, you didn't want us, Mom. And I said, what do you mean? He said, Dad told me you guys weren't planning on having us. And I said, we weren't planning on having you. I said, but both of you were the best surprises that ever came into our lives. So that doesn't mean we didn't want you. That just means we weren't planning you. That's different.
Exactly. What if I showed up at your house with a new bike for your son? He wasn't planning to get a new bike, but what a nice surprise.
Right? He would be even more excited because he didn't know it was coming.
Right? So we always tend to look at the negative side of things. They weren't planning for me, so then I must be a burden.
Mm-hmm. And I recently, last year, I wrote a book called Raise Future Leaders, 3 Simple Steps to Transformational Parenting. And there's a part inside of it, I was like, oh my gosh, Ayse, this is so perfect, because it's a commitment. It's like a contract for parents. It says, and you put your name there, hereby take responsibility to look deeply at and take responsibility for my own inner beliefs and programming. I'm willing to awaken my inner courage and practice accepting all the mistakes I will inevitably make as learning leaps to better my connection with myself and therefore my children. I will do my best to use the moments I struggle with the most with my own self-judgment, criticism, and doubt as practice playgrounds for learning. And then they have to sign, with my beloved so-and-so in mind and heart, signed, your name, and then dated. So that importance of a commitment, you reminded me of that today. It's like, that's why I had to put that commitment, and I didn't realize at the time, but it had to be a choice. It had to be a choice.
Okay, so I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here. And you made in that, and it's amazing. So I'm not criticizing. So
of course,
imagine so now that you know about commitment, there was a statement in there. Mm-hmm. I will do my best. Mm-hmm. That gives them an out.
People like an out. It's true.
Right? But if I'm committed, I'm committed.
Right, because they're given an out, and their best isn't their commitment.
Exactly. Because they can go, well, that's just my best. Really? Is it? Because you could do better.
And that's an important point to make, is that we're often saying, I did as good as I could, but that was as good as I could do.
I tried.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? I hate the word tried, but I tried. Right? Or I am willing. That sounds very positive. It sounds like it's a commitment, but it means that you're just willing to do it. But will you?
Mm-hmm. So tell me, what is the shift? And even you just saying it out loud, the difference between putting the do my best and commitment. Can you do that in a statement? Because it feels like it'll be a physical, I can feel that like in my body if you say it.
Okay, so can you give me that one statement where it says, I will do my best? Can you reread that to me?
Yes, please stand by. I'm refinding the page. I know it'll be like shortly, so just 1 second.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay, found it. Okay. The do my best part. Oh, yes. I will do my best to use the moments I struggle the most with my own self-judgment, criticism, and doubt as practice playgrounds for learning.
Okay, that's a long statement. So no, just because I have to memorize it. So what if I am committed? I want you to start with that, because you've got it written in front of you. So Jules, like imagine you're reading it for yourself. I, Jules, am committed to. How would you change that statement?
I can feel it. I'm getting ready for it. Here we go. I, Jules, will use the moments I struggle with the most.
Wait, back up. You didn't say I'm committed to.
This is good. I, Jules, am committed to using the moments I struggle the most with my own self-judgment, criticism.
Okay, stop there. I, Jules, am committed to loving myself or not judging myself.
I, Jules, am committed to not judging myself.
To accepting myself as I am, right, in that moment. So I, Jules, am committed to accepting myself as I am in that moment. Because when you're struggling with judging yourself, you're still saying that I'm committed to being able to still struggle with judging myself. You want to take it to the side as if it's already done.
Yes, and not having to include the negativity bias we talked about earlier.
Right. So it's an example is like when I do who am I exercises with people, let's say impatience, right? So somebody might be impatient, or let's use judgment, okay? I used to have this really bad habit of creating caricatures of people in my life when they were doing funny things. I would make caricatures in my head and make myself laugh. I used to do that. So that was being judgmental, right? So now instead of saying, who am I when I am not judgmental? That's not what I want. Who am I when I can accept people as they are?
Definitely.
So I want to take it right to the other side. No room for negativity, no doors.
A hallway without doors.
That's right.
No opportunities to try to exit before the commitment is through.
Exactly, because we do that when we say, I am committed to not having enough.
Or to do my best, or to try.
Right? That we leave all kinds of doors open. I'm broke. There's no doors there.
And I like that analogy too. If the doors are open, then the pathway, if there's wind, let's say, because I hear your wind chimes in the background, if there's wind going through the hallway, if there's doors that are opened, they're sucking the wind through there. It's not a wind tunnel, it's not a clear message, because there's energy that's being lost in the transmission of energy through the doorways that are even just partially open.
Exactly. And the only time that I say that you should have doors available in your commitment is when you're committing to, I am committed to being open to all the possibilities that are out in the universe to make X situation in my highest and best.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
so now how would you say
sense.
that final sentence? Do that again. I, Jules, am committed to.
I, Jules, am committed to loving myself and great and accepting the resistances I come across. Practice playgrounds for learning.
Right? Better. Right? And I bet you if you played with it some more, you could make it even flow even better. Right? Because I just got you on the spot here. So this is how we can change what we are committed to. First of all, it's seeing what are we committed to? Is that really what I want to say? And does that leave doors open for me to still act not in my highest and best?
Yes, because even the doors that we leave open need to be doors we choose to leave open because they're doors with potential that we want to, access.
Imagine that you are that old car, that 1960s Mustang that you got that's in mint condition. You don't even want a scratch on that car. Everything has to be purring like a baby, right? Everything is, or like a kitty or whatever you want to say. I don't know what the words are for men's words. But they have these cars. You can't even get in the car with your shoes on.
Sounds like a ridiculous car to me.
Right? But that's how much you'll take care of that car to make sure that nothing negative happens to that car. Imagine that that's you now.
Wow, that's a powerful imagery.
Right? You have to love yourself and respect yourself that much. You have to know that you are number one. And whatever you have done to bring some dings and some dents and some scratches into your vessel that you're in right now, this vehicle that we're in living this life, you can fix it. But what do you want it to be?
I'm imagining since you asked, I'm imagining this like beautiful light blue car, and I have my own set of clean flip-flops inside, so that I'm not wearing my dirty shoes inside my car. I'm not pulling the muddy red sands of the Bay of Fundy onto the inside of my car.
Right?
And nobody's allowed in that I don't invite in for an adventure in my car. Yes.
It's like, no, I'm not even rolling down the window for you. I don't want to streak my windows. It's not worth it, right? So at the end of the day, it's like you will pay that much attention to something that, let's face it, we think we own it, we don't. You're not taking it with you.
And
right? we don't actually own anything, so you're not taking it with you.
We're owning the commitment, though, right?
Like you're owning the commitment, though. Right? And that's how your soul, your energy, how our vibration and our frequency raise when we start committing ourselves to our own growth. And that's real growth. Living consciously. What am I saying? What am I thinking? What am I doing? How am I being?
And that new level of awareness, and thank you, I have to leave soon here, Ayse, but...
I gotta go too, yeah.
Okay, perfect. That new level of awareness, though, of recognizing when I hear something, when I hear myself say something like, oh, we're never gonna make enough money, or I'm never gonna be that good, to actually go, oh, was that something I'd be willing to commit to? Oh, right, okay. If that's not something I'm willing to commit to, then what is it I am willing to commit to? Because at least that brings in that equal and opposite force of what am I committing to? What do I want to commit to here? Because I don't want to commit to that. And as long as my awareness can be there, just like I would remind people in their own bodies of their stories, then that's very powerful. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Right? And the last piece is, remember how long you said the negative commitments. So it's recommitting to yourself daily. Like, so if your new commitment is to, accept my commitment as I should commit to accepting people as they are, then I'm going to say that every day. I'm going to say that a couple of times a day. When the situation arises where I would normally make a caricature in my head in the past, I commit to accepting people and loving them as they are.
Because it takes that repetition to build brick after brick after brick after brick, the new foundation.
Right?
Yeah.
Repetition is the mother of learning. And we have to learn a new behavior, so we have to repeat it over and over. Because we repeated it over and over to create the situation we're in now.
I heard, I think it was Bruce Lipton the other day, maybe it was Greg Braden, but it said something about going back in time and pushing the record button. Instead of the replay over and over and over again, you need to go back and you need to re-record it. And what you're talking about here is actually recording what you're choosing to record instead of the old reality, just like we would in inner child work.
Right.
We're making the new pattern, we're repeating it over and over and over again until it's what's playing in the background instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jules, for joining me. We've given everybody a bit to think about today. Can you hear
definitely me.
So everyone that's listening is going to be like recommitting. So it's a thing, right? So thank you all for listening that are going to be listening in the future. It's a small room today, but that's okay. We've sent some powerful messages. So thank you, and join us at IAUSM, IAUSM.com. In the new year, it is going to be free for all students. So make sure that you join us there, and we'll talk to you soon.